Before our Christmas break, Sinead Allen composed a beautiful poem about how her life and our lives could be amazing. In the poem, I love the line, "You see, I've heard that if you never met the devil, it's because you're heading in the right direction." St. Matthew in the gospel this morning that Carly just read points us to the right direction, and it's all about a star. The star they had seen rising led them until it stopped over a place where the child was. I was in a meeting with an alum a few weeks ago before our Christmas break. He is a devout Roman Catholic who fasts and prays the rosary on a regular basis, was an outstanding quarterback of our football team here, graduated from Wharton at Penn, is a successful businessman. He's a wonderful parent and a loving husband. I was pleased to be on the altar for his wedding. He's in regular contact with me by email, but this time we met. His name is Drew Mason. In our meeting several weeks before the break, he said something to me that stayed with me and helped me in my own spiritual direction to think about certain things during our Christmas break. And this is the line he gave me. "Just as the master artist continually must look at the subject to accurately portray his work, we must constantly look to the life of Jesus to accurately depict him and reflect him in our life." His statement caused me to think about a few things, including the message of Christmas and the season of Epiphany, which will begin this Thursday on January 6th, when we celebrate the wise men who had followed a star to find Jesus and then carried that image in their hearts out into the world. The star is about going in the right direction. The star behind me is from our lower school Christmas pageant. There is a connection, I believe, of following the star of spirituality to the world of art. And because of my own personal interest, there's a connection between following the star and the world of sport. What direction do we need to take to be masters of spirituality, to be religious people? What direction do we need to take to be a master artist? What direction do we need to take to be a master in athletics of our particular sport? What links them all? And I have some props behind me that I hope will help get the message across today. So during spring break, I focused on what does the star mean? We could refer to it, when you think about it, as God's GPS, which eventually gets us to the stable to experience the Lord at his birth. I can picture the three wise men making their way across the desert, looking at the star for guidance with one eye and the other eye set in the direction to Bethlehem. So before Christmas break, I talked with Mr. Siegel, Chair of the Arts, and Ms. Buggy, Director of Athletics, to get their take on going in the right direction in art and athletics. Why is it so important to look at the subject, whatever form that takes, in a great work of art, a great achievement in sport, or the Spirit in our lives? We need to be going in the right direction to get to our destination. That's what a GPS does, and that's what the star did. First, let's start with the world of art. Mr. Siegel did this painting to my right, and it was a painting of this object, this pear. Hard for you to see in the back, but trust me, every detail, every nuance, including this little blemish up front of the pear, and I'll leave this up so you can see it afterwards. He did a wonderful job. And if you're dealing with a master artist and you ask him to draw something for you, what he does, as Mr. Siegel did, he does it with all a degree of excellence. So I said, what do we need to do to be a great artist, to be a master artist? Obviously, you have to look from the object, the pear, onto the canvas, to get a clear, vivid representation of the object. But when you look from the object to the canvas, Mr. Siegel indicated to me that the master artist makes a real connection. Makes a real connection, glancing at the object and then at the canvas and communicating all the complexity of light and tone and shading. And when you look at that pear, it looks so fresh, you almost want to take a bite from it on the canvas. Like the wise men following the star, the master artist, going in the right direction, must take a particular approach. You look to the object to see it in its complexity so that it becomes more believable on the canvas. Mr. Siegel also told me a story that points us in the right direction of being a master artist. He said there's a story about Picasso, a famous artist, and he's walking through a particular town. I think Mr. Siegel said Paris. And someone said to Picasso, "Can you draw me a sketch of that, whatever that was?" And Picasso said, "Sure." 15 minutes later, he had the sketch drawn, he handed it back to the person and said, "That will be $1,500. $1,500? It took you 15 minutes to draw." "No," he said, "it took me 15 years. It took me a lifetime of practice, drawing and drawing and drawing to produce that sketch." When I talk with Miss Buggy about how you go in the right direction in the world of sport, such as tennis, basketball, field hockey, and others, she said that the great players go in the right direction when they keep their eye on the ball and listen carefully to the words of their coaches. The coaches become like stars, setting you as athletes in the right direction to get the player in the zone. What makes someone a master in sport? Miss Buggy said, in fact, you need to watch the ball, but you need to be aware of everything else that's going on around you. And I was struck by her comment that when a tennis player is in the zone, this ball feels and looks like watermelon. Likewise, when a basketball player is in the zone, this basketball, as it's going into the net looks like it's the size of a lake. I couldn't get a lake into chapel this morning, but you get the message. It really, when you're there, there's a connection that's important that is made. So like the wise men following the star, we're headed in the right direction by keeping our eye on the ball and taking time to listen to our coach. And of course, Miss Buggy echoed the words of Mr. Siegel. How do you do that? With practice, practice, practice. And here's the key word: regular practice. The star led the wise men to the Christ child. It led them in a right direction for perhaps, when you think about it, one of the most important journeys taken in the history of humankind. And just as the artist needs to check frequently the proper direction to paint a realistic painting, and the athlete needs to check the ball and feel their way into the zone and listen to their coach to find the right direction for a successful completion of a goal, an event, a score, we need to follow this pattern in our spiritual life. The alumnus mentioned in the opening does this with regular prayer, fasting, and paying attention to how his life is given proper direction by his Christian faith. That's why Miss Buggy and Mr. Siegel said the secret is practice, practice, and even more practice. The message of the star is the awful, as in full of all truth. That God finds us when we're heading in the right direction, seeking to find him, as was the case of the wise men going to Bethlehem. It is why we come to chapel every other day. The hope is that you will hear, sing, or pray something here in chapel that you can take out in the world to take you into the game of life, something that's nourished your soul, something that's nourished your spirit, and led you to believe and be a more moral person and live a more moral life. The goal of worship in chapel is to be a GPS point, a star, taking all of us in the right direction. Just think back to December, the words of Mr. Wagg, to take the Advent spirit and the love of family and friends and school with us out into the world. To listen to Gordon Cooney, to take the work of social justice with us out into the world. To listen to Sine Allen, to take her poetic form of what it means to be amazing with you. To listen to our students who attended the People of Color Conference, and to take their celebration and honoring of difference with you, to enjoy with you. To take the Scrooge production and all of its hilarity, to notice it, but to take the deeper message of loving now with you. To take the services of morning prayer and lessons and carols and the inspiration of song and prayer with you into the world. Finally, back to Sine's statement, that if you've never met the devil, it's because you're heading in the same direction as he is. What a line. Our respective faith traditions found in this chapel today require us to confront evil and to meet it in any way that we find it. When we see someone else bullying another, when we see someone being disrespectful of this campus or one another, when we ourselves fail to welcome somebody new, somebody into our group of friends. All of us need a star to travel in the right direction. It could be that star takes on different forms. It could be a parent, a coach, a teacher, a chapel experience, a class, a game, a friend. And as it was and is for my alumnus friend and me, to continue to look to the life of Jesus to give us the gift of faith, the gift of hope, the gift of love for others. These words were reflected in the life of Elizabeth Edwards, wife of former Senator John Edwards, divorced, who wrote in her final days on December 6th before she died, I have found that the simple act of living with hope, the days I do have are made more meaningful and precious. Hope was her star, she said. Let's all of us find ours. Thank you, and Happy New Year and good to have you all back.